Good morning, everyone. This is Celeste Carmichael, and I want to welcome you to the Building Campus County Connections webinar series. Today we are going to be talking about farm to school initiatives. I'm really excited, and really excited too that we had so many participants register for this webinar. We are going to record this webinar. This is part of our Campus County Connection webinar series, and the recordings are posted on our staff site. So that you can share them with your volunteers, with your stakeholders, with other staff in your office. And I think this is going to be a really great one. So I'm here with Jennifer Wilkins, and we have some wonderful guests. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about Campus County Connections because obviously this one connected to so many of you. So thank you for joining us this morning, Jennifer.
Great. It's great to be here, and I'm excited that Cooperative Extension is having this webinar on a very important topic. And I'll just introduce briefly today's speakers who are going to join us after I make a few remarks. We have Mary Lee Bourbeau, who is the Finger Lakes Eat Smart New York Project Director from Wayne County. She's in the CCE office in Wayne County. We have Amy Hamlin, who is the Executive Director of the Coalition for Healthy School Food. And I have a slide that shows their information that will be coming up shortly.
Thank you.
And then a little later, about 10 o'clock, we'll have Audrey Baker join us, who is the Program Director for Woods Earth. And I also have the website that's showing for her as well. Again, I'm Jennifer Wilkins, and some of you may have been in the system when I was for over 20 years a Senior Extension Associate in the Division of Nutritional Sciences here at Cornell. And I really began working on farm to school beginning in the sort of early mid-90s, and was part of a national team that was looking at trying to identify opportunities and challenges for farm to school, and involved several states, California, Montana, Pennsylvania, Michigan, among others. And before we started, Celeste really asked me, well, what are your motivations, or why do you think farm to school is important? And I think that when you look at some of the missions of Cooperative Extension and some of the issues, important issues that we face in society today, I really feel that farm to school is an interesting and potentially useful approach and strategy for addressing several issues that involve sustainability and public health. So to give just an overview of what we'll be talking about today, we'll look just briefly at, I'll provide a little bit of background about farm to school, and then look at some results of a survey that we conducted a couple of years ago within the Cooperative Extension system that some of you may have participated in, and show a few results from that survey, and then share a few resources, definitely considering that our guests will also be providing some resources, and a little bit of information about leadership in New York, and a few slides on policy, because I think it's so important. And then I'll pass it off to our guests, who will be providing examples and their thoughts about farm to school and practice at the local level. So when we think about farm to school, let's just get on the same page and talk about what it is. It's a program that connects schools with local farms. The sort of core of farm to school, and people think about that, is the promotion and service of locally produced food in the cafeterias. And we largely think about this in K through 12 schools, but also this is part of colleges, and increasingly in colleges and universities as well. And it's part of a larger umbrella, which is called Farm to Institution, that encompasses a range of different kinds of institutions that are listed there, as well as others. It also can include a number of different strategies that involve changing menus and recipes so that they feature local food and are seasonally varied. It can involve food and agriculture education in the classroom, as well as taste testings of these new items that will be served in the cafeteria. Farm to School often involves discussions and readjustments to procurement and sourcing of foods. This is one of the, I think, most interesting and sometimes one of the more challenging aspects of developing Farm to School connections. Farm to School also can be accompanied by and supported with school gardens, field trips to farms, and harvest celebrations. And if you look at, this is actually one of the resources, which I'm going to get to resources in a bit, but I think it's really important to note that the USDA now has really become increasingly involved in Farm to School, and they have a Farm to School census, and the website is listed there. And according to their census, and there are in New York State over 600 public school districts, and of those, over 500 participated and completed the survey that was sent out for the USDA Farm to School census. And what they found that we have in New York over 300 districts that are representing nearly 3,000 schools with an estimated over 1.8 million kids that are in some way or other bringing farm to school. So that's a pretty exciting number. So what are some of the motivations? Well, I alluded to these when I was talking about why I think Farm to School is an important approach. We have some very important issues, and these two really come together, public health and agricultural viability, when you're talking about Farm to School. In the public health area, Farm to School increases access to healthy local foods. It focuses on minimally processed foods, which is, I think, one of the critical issues related to the quality of the food supply. So when you're talking about Farm to School, you're really talking about wholesome, whole, minimally processed foods getting into the cafeterias, and improves over time. This is one of the long-term outcomes that we look for, is improvements in student health. In terms of agricultural viability, schools, colleges, and universities represent an expansion of markets for local and regional farmers, and it encourages, because the schools have particular needs in terms of what they need to buy to support the meals, it encourages diversification in agriculture, and in these ways strengthens local and regional economy. And there's been studies of this, and increasingly we're getting some benchmarks that show this to be the case. So one of the keys for us in the Division of Nutritional Sciences and in CCE is looking at diet quality. And one of the reasons why we think that Farm to School is a good strategy is that largely these efforts focus on fruits and vegetables, which now schools are required through nutrition standards to serve more, offer more of these and serve more of these. So it's very much in line with Farm to School. Again, focusing on whole, minimally processed foods. And because of these emphases, Farm to School, and it's not that Farm to School just focuses on fruits and vegetables. You can have any food from any food group, but the emphasis is on fruits and vegetables. It's very consistent with efforts to improve the nutritional quality and of competitive foods, which are foods that are served and are not reimbursable in the federal reimbursable meal, and also consistent with efforts to reduce access to foods of minimal nutritional value. So one of the things that I think is interesting is to think of Farm to School as a new framework for school food, one that would be based on a number of influences, definitely what we know about the relationship between diet and health and support of the new nutrition standards for school meals, but also school food could be influenced by and informed by sustainability considerations, economic vitality, natural resource conservation, and community development. And that in these ways, this kind of approach to school food would support food choices that would do two things: not only encourage and support optimal health and disease reduction, but also support local and regional food systems. So I want to now just share briefly a little bit of the results that we got from a survey that we conducted in 2013 within the system, within the Cooperative Extension system. We surveyed educators, executive directors, team issue program leaders. People had different ways of describing their roles, and coordinators. It went out to approximately over 400 people within the system through various listservs that the leadership within Extension was generous to help us reach these people through various listservs that are Cooperative Extension approaches. And we received input from 131 participants. So one of the things that we wanted to know was, is this worth investing in? Is Farm to School something that our educators and our leaders at the county level feel is important? And you can see here that most of the respondents agreed with the statement, Farm to School is consistent with our mission. And they also agreed largely with CCE should provide leadership in Farm to School. So the work that you're doing in the counties providing leadership is consistent with what the system said we should be doing. And then we also wanted to get a little bit of information about, was Farm to School actually being supported? So the statement, my CCE association does not support Farm to School, it was a little mixed, but you can see that for the most part, there was a fair amount of support for Farm to School. And then finally, Farm to School is not part of my program area. There was a range of responses to that, with some people strongly agreeing, so that means that it was not part of their program responsibility, to a lot of people strongly disagreeing or disagreeing, meaning that it was part of their responsibility.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
So the My CCE Association does not support Farm to School programming. Was that in the context of right now, like as a part of their
their
current program strategy?
Yeah.
Not to say like, we're opposed to this, but
no.
Just right now, that's not part of our program plan.
So that support could be in terms of program staff FTE, having it be part of a position description, those kinds of things.
Gotcha.
And it could be because of budget changes, all kinds of things.
Okay.
And that, of course, does change over time, as we know. And then this one might be a little hard to see. I hope your screens are big. But we also want to know, during the past year, so we had people reflect on the year prior to when they were answering the survey, what kinds of activities have they participated in, and what kinds of activities have they done or led related to Farm to School. And so you can see that fostering Farm to School stakeholder relationships, which I think is one of the key functions and key roles that CCE can play. A lot of people, so the red is once or more times in that prior year, many people said yes to that. So that's a really good thing. And then looking down, over half of the respondents said that within the last year they had provided training or technical assistance to teachers. They'd provided under half, but still 46% had at some point provided training and technical assistance to farmers. And then down at the bottom, had established or helped establish or sustain school gardens. So you can take a closer look at this to see where the activity at least had been at the time of the survey, and you may think about other kinds of roles. In fact, I think we were thinking of asking the question right now is, how have you been involved in Farm to School efforts? And maybe you can
chat those in.
Yeah,
right. So if you have some suggestions or ways that your association has been involved in Farm to School or considering being involved in Farm to School, maybe you can take a moment to chat those in. And so while you're doing that, I will also share on your screen, if this looks really small, and perhaps you're, you haven't experienced a webinar quite like this, or where we're sharing slides like this, there is a little diagonal arrow at the top of the screen that shows the slides. If you click on that, that will enlarge the screen so that this is a little bit bigger wherever you are and whatever you're looking at. So.
Yeah, so this list may be a list that's consistent with how you think of ways to be involved, but there may be other things that you have done, and clearly we'll hear from Mary Lee in terms of how CCE has been involved in her area, but then we'll hear other approaches as well from our other two guests. So if this inspires any.
Yeah, I like this list because it's, you know, farm to school may mean different things to different people.
Exactly.
So this is a lot of really good examples of ways that associations could be involved in farm to school.
Yeah, and this list was actually generated through a qualitative study that was done prior to this quantitative research. So we were interviewing CCE educators, we interviewed food service directors and food service professionals, and we interviewed a number of stakeholders, farmers, to generate this list. So it should be fairly reflective of how people are involved.
And there's some good examples that came in. So CCE Erie County, Eat Smart New York has been writing the curricula for Buffalo Public Schools, Buffalo Schools Pilot Schools, focusing on Harvest of the Month produce items.
Oh, great.
Saw that. Involvement of several school garden programs, helped school apply for grant funding, make connections with Farmers for Schools, partnered with schools to provide a coordinator, assisting with school gardens, ag in the classroom, nutrition education in schools, fostering relationships. So
that's great.
Great.
That's really wonderful. And one of them links to something that I'll be moving on to pretty soon, which is about the availability of funds through grants for this kind of activity. So let's move on now to looking at, I believe, resources coming up. So there is a lot of resources available on the web. I'm just going to highlight a few, but each of these links to many other resources. So the first one, to blow our own horn, is our website, CCE website. So there's the link there, and this provides resources for food service directors and professionals, farmers, extension educators, teachers, and parents and community members. And there's a wide range of resources there that point in many directions, including the next one, which is the National Farm to School Network. This network has been, it was formed in the mid-90s and has received W.K. Kellogg Foundation funding for many, many years. And it functions very well in terms of reaching different stakeholders and involving participants in different states in advocacy for farm to school and developing a resource base. So it provides information, advocacy, and networking. It's a networking hub for communities to bring local food sourcing and food and agriculture education into the school systems and preschools as well. So it's a great place to look for policy advocacy and also how-to information, and it does have information particular to each state and provides information about, in terms of the network, where leadership is for each region and each state. So it's a wonderful resource. And then next, let's see, there we go. Within our state, there's also what's called FINIS, which is, I think, a nice acronym, which is Farm to Institution New York State, and it provides new market opportunities for local farmers. It describes farm to school as being a market opportunity for farmers, and then also looks at the benefit of bringing healthy, high quality food to people in a range of institutions. So that it's not just farm to school, but it's looking at institutions in general. And I think one of the strengths of this is that it takes advantage of the different kinds of procurement and buying potential of different institutions and encourages institutions to work together, whereas schools that have public funding and look to federal reimbursements for their meals, which I'll show you in a minute, their purchasing power may not be as great as some other entities like colleges or hospitals or residential institutions that if they can collaborate together, that increases potential. The website is there for you, and one of the things that they provide that some of the others don't emphasize as much is resources for processors and distributors. So that's one of the strengths of this resource, I believe.
So, and if any of you have resources that you refer to regularly that Jennifer hasn't shared, and you want to share those in chat for your colleagues to see, that would be great. So we're going to kind of keep moving, but if anyone wants to share resources, we would appreciate it.
Yeah, that's excellent. And as I said, I just am sharing a very few, but there are many resources. And I'm sure we'll hear about some of those from our guests as well. So then finally, I just wanted to touch on a few. There's been a fair amount of policy activity around farm to school, but I'm just going to highlight a few. And in the Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010, and this is the big act that reauthorizes the child nutrition program, so the big programs, school lunch program, school breakfast program, the WIC program. This is the act that does that, and it's renewed reauthorization is on a 4-year cycle. And in the last one, $5 million was included in the act to be provided annually for the USDA Farm to School grant program. And so grants now are available for assisting in the implementation of farm to school programs. And there are different streams of funding in this grant program. There's training grants, there are supportive operation grants, planning grants, implementation. You can see the list there. So there are a number of ways to get money. And then more recently, so a farm to school bill, a Farm to School Act of 2050 has been introduced. No action beyond being introduced has occurred, but the good thing about this, it's very hopeful, is that it now includes, it expands that grant funding to preschools and summer food service sites and after-school programs. It increases the annual mandatory funding from $5 to $15 million. And it also increases access among tribal schools so that they can serve farm fresh and traditional foods. And it improves participation from beginning, veteran, and socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. So it's an expansion of that grant pool, which is, I think, very hopeful. And then in New York, just to bring this home, different states have many, there are many different kinds of initiatives and policy efforts that are going on. In New York, one of the key efforts that's been, I think it's raised its head a few times in the last 20 years that I've been involved with Farm to School, but is a request to increase the state reimbursement for school meals. So as you probably know, schools are reimbursed from the federal school meals programs, but also there's state reimbursement. It's a very small amount of money. It's around 6 cents per meal, and there's been a call for increasing that state reimbursement when schools purchase New York State-grown food. This would be extremely helpful, and I think the increase we were looking for years ago was 5 cents. I'm not sure what the target is right now, but that 5 cents per meal or 10 cents per meal could help with the increased cost potentially of New York State-grown foods and the cost of labor for managing and preparing more whole foods. So it really could help. And Finesse is a driver of this new request, and they are circulating a sign-on letter urging the governor to support this increase in the executive budget. So that's one of the things going on that I think is very exciting, and we have an opportunity to provide our voice of support. And this is the last slide I'll show, just to show you where we are with federal reimbursement. So for a free lunch, the federal, that's the last line down there, the range is from just over $3, $3.07, to a maximum of $3.30. So the next time you have lunch, I want you to take $3 and see what you can buy with that. So you know what schools have to work with, and most of the time about half of that goes for labor. So there's not much left for food. So that's kind of the reality that we're working with, at least in the K through 12 environment. So that's what I've got, and I think now we're going to turn to Mary Lee and hear from her what's going on in terms of farm to school in her area.
And Mary Lee, I have unmuted you, and if you want to begin by just kind of introducing yourself a little bit, and then after this introduction slide, I have a picture of the project that you worked on.
Oh, thank you, Celeste. Thank you, Jennifer. Can people hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. So I want to tell the story of our sliced apple project, and this really started in 2008, and my role was the nutrition team coordinator here at CCE Wayne, and that was the role that I had when all of this actually took place. In the past year, I am my new role is project director for Finger Lakes Eat Smart New York, so it's changing. I wanted to provide that context. But I can tell you the story of our sliced apple project because we certainly learned so much from it about farm to school that are helping us in the future, and they're things that we sure didn't know at the outset. So in 2008, 2009, and 2010, we had a project, Eat Well, Play Hard, through New York State Department of Health. So we had some funding, and one of many projects we were charged to do was work with schools in Wayne County to develop farm to school and increase student access to healthy foods. So we did, some of the traditional things. The most wonderful thing about this 3-year period is we established relationships with each of our school district food service directors that we hadn't had prior. And it was with them that and with their guidance, that we developed recipes, newsletters, publicity pieces, and fun facts for them to use in Harvest Month, which was October, for that 3-year period. In 2010, we had learned about a successful project happening in Onondaga County, and this was if schools were given or had access to commercial fruit slicers, and you see a picture there of we call them a sectionizer or fruit slicer in the bottom right corner. There seemed to be quite an increase in student consumption of the sliced fruit. So we thought we'd give that a shot since we had this Eat Well, Play Hard funding. So through a mini-grant process, we awarded 8 elementary schools through the food service directors sectionized. And when we asked them to send us some information and some data, of course there was no control group at the time, it seemed to be a 30 to 40% increase in students choosing the sliced apples versus whole apples. In 2012, we shared this information with the Cornell Food and Brand Lab down at Cornell University, so Brian Wansick and his team. And he got pretty excited about this and bumped it up to a small research project. So we engaged 6 middle schools. 3 of them were control, and 3 of them received the sectionizer. And we actually did food waste observations, so we were observing how much of the apple, if any of it, went in the trash, along with the production statistics that the food service directors gave us. And what we found, and what Brian's team helped us find was that there was a 71% increase in sliced apples taken by students. And not only that, the percentage of students who ate more than half of the apple increased by 73%. So it was a really nice double success. So more apples chosen when it was sliced, and then less thrown away, meaning a significant amount of the apples were consumed. So that was fantastic news. We were able to continue this work. We received Creating Healthy Places funding, also through New York State Department of Health, so we were able to continue, and had some staff to support this work. Then in the summer 2012, we worked with Jennifer Wilkins, who was at Cornell at the time, and were able to obtain a Cornell intern for that summer, and Jennifer was her faculty supervisor advisor. And what this student did was incredibly helpful to us. She interviewed food service directors, farmers, and distributors. And again, this is still a Wayne County focus. And it was through that qualitative work that she, in a report, identified the 3 biggest barriers to farm to school. And these won't surprise any of us at this point in the game, but this is all a process of discovery at the time. And the 3 biggest barriers were delivery, or distribution, processing, and seasonality. The main opportunity was there was just widespread interest among all 3 of these groups, the food service directors, the farmers, and distributors. So we knew we had some common ground to work on. One of her she had 2 recommendations, and one of them was just turned out to be a very successful project. And that was one of the distributors that she talked to at length was FoodLink, which is it's a Rochester-based, it's our regional food bank. And they are already obtaining, either purchasing or getting donated produce from Wayne County farms, and they were already distributing food out, in that case, to Wayne County emergency food sites and schools, et cetera. So there was already a distribution system in place. They were really starting to embark on minimally processed foods. So we shared with them our story to date of the Sliced Apple Project. And because they had an industrial kitchen and they had a machine that could process these apples, could slice these apples, they developed 2 products. One was a single-serving bag, and the other one was a 3-pound bag. And they used 2 of our Wayne County food service directors as pilot projects. Turned out to be very helpful because the food service directors had some very concrete feedback for them for how to change the packaging and the labeling, et cetera, so that this would be useful. It quickly grew. So once FoodLink had this down, 10 of our 11 school districts in Wayne County went ahead and started ordering and purchasing sliced apples from FoodLink, and they were also the deliverer at the time. And I think we reached probably 13,000 students, and they purchased about 4,000 pounds of apples in that first year. FoodLink has a regional reach, several counties, so they quickly expanded to over 40 schools in the Rochester and Finger Lakes area. And what happened is they maxed out their own capacity to meet the demand for, in this case, the sliced apples. Now, at the time, the bad news for us was we had this kind of cozy relationship with FoodLink, and we had plans to develop other projects like carrot coins and broccoli florets, et cetera. But what happened, and is still happening, is FoodLink needed to take a step back to move forward. and I am happy to say they plan to open a brand new industrial kitchen spring of 2016 that's going to have the capacity to provide even more sliced apples and also do other products like broccoli florets. So this is very exciting to us. The apples are all kinds. You can see from the slide, that's a picture of a single serving, and you can see how it's labeled Fowler Farms, which is a large farm here in Wayne County in Wolcott, New York. So the apples, pretty much all of them were coming from Wayne County. So it really hit what Jennifer said is the public health benefit and the viability benefit. So in summary, you know, this really was a systems change impacting students for the impacting schools for the benefit of students. It sure took some time. I mean, we started this in 2008, and that relationship building, you know, needed that time. But the exciting thing is there is momentum to expand in the future. This project did address 2 of the 3 barriers that were identified by the Cornell interns, the delivery and the processing. Sliced apples is a good example of minimally processed foods. And it was a really good role for CCE because we could serve as a catalyst. We could bring in some research, and you know, we used our collaboration skills with FoodLink and school districts to move forward.
Mary Lee?
Yes.
Can I just jump in and point out, and it's probably obvious to everybody, but, you know, I'm sitting here going, wow, you know, like, wow, this is awesome. Point out a couple of things. One, it was something that that CCE noticed as a need, right? I mean, you identified a need both from the school perspective and from the agriculture perspective, and the kids and health and nutrition. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and then, you know, Brian Wansink and his lab saw what you were doing because somebody from your office, you or perhaps Beth, communicated that, right? So you communicated your successes and some research followed. Is that correct?
Yes, we took our data, if you can call it that, and had a meeting with Brian and his team at Cornell, and you know, we're surprised by his reaction that he wanted to do a little research project out of this. But yes, this was an in-person meeting that we had with him.
Yeah, well, those are the things that we say, and from the program development perspective, you know, it's ideal when extension and research are working together. And sometimes things happen starting with the research and moving out to the field, and sometimes things happen within the field and identifying some opportunity and communicating that to researchers. So I guess I just want to point that out that, you know, that's just a perfect example and really pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Well, and also, this is Jennifer. I would also like to point out that sometimes when you think of farm to school, it can feel overwhelming, like, oh, we have to get all local food. But oftentimes these really successful efforts are focusing on a single crop.
Or an opportunity, right?
An opportunity. And you linked, how do kids best want to eat apples, and then met that need, but then also linked with local farms. And I think the collaboration with FoodLink was fantastic. That was a really good link.
Yes, and they really, there's one more for-profit player now in our area, but they were the only ones even venturing into this minimally processed, because we tried to work with some other companies as well. My current position is the project director of Finger Lakes Eat Smart New York. Our focus is shifted really more toward working with school and community gardens across our 11 counties. I will say Wayne is got a project with Genesee Valley BOCES, Healthy Schools and Communities, so some of this work will continue. But again, there's enough momentum, and FoodLink has invested huge amounts of energy and time and funding into moving their capacity to supply local produce in forms that food service directors can use and students will eat. So I think hopefully we'll have more news about that in the future.
All right, great. So Mary Lee, thank you very much for sharing. We're gonna pass the ball on to Amy Hamlin. And Amy, I'm going to unmute you at this point. And I'm working on, Amy just sent me some pictures. I'm gonna work on trying to get those up. But Amy, if you wanna get started and do an introduction first and talk about your project.
Great, thank you. I'm very excited to be here today, and thank you for inviting me. So the Coalition for Healthy School Food started out as a statewide organization. We're a nonprofit, but we've expanded and we're beginning to have a more national presence. Our recipes have been distributed to 25,000 schools nationwide, and one of our educational resources, which is called Wellness Wake Up Call, is also used in hundreds of schools around the country. But specifically in Ithaca, New York, we have a Farm to School program, and it's a partnership of the Ithaca City School District, Moosewood Restaurant, Cayuga Pure Organics, which grows local and organic dry beans, and Woods Earth, and Woods Earth is going to come on the call in a little bit. Woods Earth, which grows and sources vegetables and fruits, and also operates the Fresh Snack Program, which my organization started back in 2008 and ran for 2 years before turning it over to another group. So our program wouldn't be possible without our partners, and although they're all important, I want to say that it certainly couldn't be successful without the commitment of the food service director, Denise Agati, and her staff. They've been incredible, and they make it successful. And what is really unique about our program is while Farm to School programs, as Jennifer mentioned, largely focus on fruits and vegetables, our program is different in that it focuses on the protein component of the meal. So specifically, we focus on plant-based proteins, and this is really important for both health and the environment. Animal-based proteins contain cholesterol and saturated fat, while the plant-based proteins have no cholesterol and only trace amounts of fats. And also, fiber is only found in plant foods, and plant-based proteins are full of fiber. So it's really important for our health to reduce not only processed foods, but animal foods as well. And as a result, we introduced these plant-based entrees, which is called the meat or meat alternate component of the meal.
Amy, I'm going to interrupt you for just 1 second. Are you looking at your screen right now?
Yes.
Okay, can you see your pasta fazool recipe? Okay, perfect. Just checking on the technology.
Great, yes, Ken, thank you.
Go ahead.
So from an from a health perspective, it's really important to reduce the animal products in our diet, but also from an environmental perspective, probably most of you have heard that animal agriculture is a major contributor to global warming, and while it hasn't been discussed that much in the past, it's starting to be discussed more. According to the United Nations, it's 18%, responsible for 18% of all global warming, while all transportation is 14%. And according to the World Bank lead scientists, as reported in the World Watches Journal, it said animal agriculture is responsible for 51% of all global warming. And I don't think we really know exactly what the numbers are, but the point is that every day when we eat, we have an opportunity to make a difference with global warming by reducing our animal product consumption. So we're big advocates of legumes. And interestingly, we've always said legumes, legumes meaning beans, lentils, split peas, but the United Nations has now declared 2016 the year of the pulses. And every year only one thing gets declared, right? So it's the year of the pulses next year. And all pulses are legumes, but not all legumes are pulses. So peanuts and soy, which are higher fat, are not pulses. But pulses grow in pods, they get dried, they're low fat, and they're used, as a protein. They can count as a protein or a vegetable. Also, another factor is that one of the things we've done in relation to this Farm to School program is every year for the last 3 years, we have been presenting to the New York State bean farmers, which has been really exciting. And I've learned so much about them, and they've learned so much about us and about healthy food. Like what I found out the year before last was most of them had never tried hummus. So I brought them this whole bean-based lunch, and they had hummus last year at the meeting. Even though chickpeas don't grow in New York State. So we've created a number of recipes as part of our whole school food program, and these recipes are 100% plant-based, i.e. vegan. They are all natural, even though all natural has no real meaning, but what I mean when I say all natural is there's no artificial ingredients in them. And they're full of fiber and phytonutrients. And these are international recipes, and they offer the opportunity to introduce new flavors and teach about different cultures. And so our recipes include, I'm going to give you some examples, Fiesta Mexican lasagna, which uses black beans, and we're actually in the process of changing that recipe to be more of a dip with chips. North African red lentils with whole wheat couscous. Pasta fazool, which uses white beans, such as Great Northern or cannellini beans. Mrs. Patel's rajma, which uses kidney beans. Rice Cuban wraps, which uses black beans. Hummus. Tuscan tomato pie, which uses cannellini beans. Tuscan tomato pie is like a white bean hummus spread on pizza with a bunch of tomatoes and basil and spinach shredded on top of that. And then golden Chinese croquettes, which are made from tofu, but actually they took them off the menu here in Ithaca just because they're a little bit labor intensive. But they come with an orange ginger sauce, and they're really delicious. We're also working on a West African pinto bean recipe as well. So we're really taking advantage of not all of our recipes, like hummus uses chickpeas, which don't grow in New York, but all the rest of the beans that we use, and even the tofu that we use, is made from soybeans grown in New York, and then it's locally made tofu. So the other really nice thing about our program is not only are we using local beans, but we're using organic beans as well. So to introduce the recipes, we do taste testings in the cafeteria. Originally, it used to be a very big process. We would bring in music from that culture, balloons that represented the color of the flag of the corresponding country. We showed all the ingredients for the students to see, touch, and smell, and we had voting. And we brought handouts of the recipes in family size that the students could take home. And we also had voting to get feedback. And all of this was very labor intensive, so we've since simplified our taste testing process. And we've tried various taste testing procedures, but what we found most effective most recently, and it's actually always what I wanted to do, but for various reasons it just didn't happen this way until more recently, where we actually stand in the lunch line right before the kids go through line and make their choice for lunch. And we did this recently, and it resulted in 7 times as many students taking our recipe.
So did you encourage them? Is that what you were doing while you're standing in line, encouraging them to try something new?
Tastes of the food that was available. So they were actually tasting it right before they could order it, and they tasted it. It was delicious, and they're like, oh, yeah, that would be good to have. And so it really...
Yeah. And they're tasting it when they're hungry,
when they're hungry.
Which is a really good strategy.
It is a good strategy.
It's a good strategy.
So I love it. So the recipe that you have up, was this a flyer that was posted in the school, or?
Yes, that's just one example of flyers. So we have flyers for the different recipes. We're actually... Okay. They're just usually printed out 8.5 by 11, but we're going to start printing them out in 18 by 24 poster sizes and getting them laminated. And we might even create a whole wall where there's just a row of all the poster recipes, so they just stay up, because taking these posters up and down is labor intensive. So we might just sort of make a row of the posters of all of our recipes. You can also see down at the bottom right is our logo, but the bottom left, we have a Cool School Food logo where we've taken our logo. You can sort of see the similarity to our logo, and we've made a Cool School Food logo that includes elements from all of our partners, the kids representing the school district, the Moose representing Moosewood Restaurant. The two O's in the word food are from the Woods Earth logo, and then the sun is the part of the KU Pure Organics logo. So we've incorporated to make a logo for the program that incorporates all of the partners.
That's great. You know, I have a question. It just seems that the next step, and you've probably already done it, knowing how active you are, but is there a component that links with the families? For example, you have these recipes, they're testing them at school, they're having them in the cafeteria. Are parents getting involved and actually then changing their shopping list and doing some of these things at home?
Well, yes, it's interesting. First of all, on our website is the family size recipes. And also, we print these recipes on the back of menus. So the parents have access to them by getting them off the back of the menu, like one recipe per month. Also, when we do taste testings, we print out the recipes, the family size, and the kids take them home. And also, you know, Ithaca's a small enough town that we run into people in the grocery store, and I regularly get compliments from parents or from kids who will see me in the grocery store or at the YMCA, and they're like, oh, you're the lady who does those recipe tastings at school, and we make that at home. And sometimes Denise would actually put the recipes on the back of the menu before we actually even tasted them in the schools. And then at the food tastings, several students would say, oh, we already made it, we love it. So we've gotten a lot of feedback about that.
Amy, a question did come in asking, did students vote or just taste test? If they voted, could you elaborate on the process that worked best for you? Right now in Buffalo Public Schools, they got a ticket and a sticker after being served the food, which they dropped in a like or dislike bucket being carried around by a volunteer, food service member, student, or teacher, but it can be chaotic in some schools. So if you can just take a moment.
We originally did voting. We just had a big box that was sort of decorated with wrapping paper, and all the ballots went into those boxes. The ballots had a happy face, a sort of in-between face, and a sad face. It also had a place for them to circle what grade they were in, and then some lines to write in information. We found that kindergarten through second graders really needed a lot of assistance filling these out, so that was very labor intensive. We'd have like 5 volunteers in the cafeteria for that. And we stopped doing that. We ended up just having, giving a little, you know, 30-second talk during each lunch period, telling the kids about the food and asking them to raise their hand if they liked it, and then asking them to raise their hand if they would choose this for lunch over whatever their favorite recipe was. And so we got feedback that way. But we found the real way to find out if kids really like it was when we would do taste testings from a cart in the cafeteria. And our food service director, she's so involved, she loves being there, and she would actually be serving all the taste testings to the kids. And we found the real measure of how popular the recipes were when kids came up and they wanted seconds and thirds and fourths. And the more often that happened, we knew the more of a hit the recipe was.
That's great. Thank you, Amy. So I'm gonna take a chance, and Audrey Baker is the program director from Woods Earth, is supposed to be connecting with us, and it looks like I have one call-in user without a name attached to it. So I'm gonna just take a risk and see if that is Audrey. So I'm gonna unmute.
Could I also say one more thing? Hello?
Is that
Yes, Amy, but hang on one second, Amy.
Is Audrey, is that you? Are you on?
Is Audrey on? Okay, so the person that you've unmuted is not Audrey.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Amy.
Okay, Amy, go ahead.
A few other, I hope to have to be able to say a little bit more, if that's okay.
Well, we're just we need to wrap up because we're getting close to our closing.
So I just wanted to say, you know, we've received feedback, we've modified recipes, we created these posters and serving line signs for the recipes, and we're also teaching after-school cooking classes where we make these recipes that we serve in the cafeteria. And we're also working on recipe-specific curriculum where we'll go in the classroom and play music from the culture and show a slideshow showing all aspects of that culture, showing the ingredients again, and then having tastings. And the recipes are now on the menu at least once a week, but also anytime there's hamburgers, they offer our beanie burger recipe. And since last year, the consumption of the beanie burgers has doubled, so that's really exciting. And so I just wanted to summarize by saying that this has been very rewarding, and we've learned a lot, and a lot of people have been involved making it happen, and we're just really excited about it. And we are seeing slowly but surely kids' acceptance of the recipes is really increasing, and that's very exciting.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Amy. It's great to get an update on the incredible job you're doing locally as well as nationally. So, Celeste, did you want to say?
I just wanted to thank all of you. I think this is a topic, certainly a topic of interest. I think that this is a starting point. I've seen we have a program development leadership cohort that's working right now, a group of program leaders and senior level educators that I'm working with on developing new programs and proposals. And I've seen within that group of 17 educators, 2 out of the 17 are interested in Farm to School. So hopefully this is a good starting point or you know, resource that's going to help help others to move forward. So don't be surprised if you hear some follow-up. And is that okay? Let me ask that question. Is that okay if people follow up with you, Jennifer?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I am at Syracuse University now, but I still have a visiting scholar appointment here in the Division of Nutritional Sciences. So it allows me to maintain a connection that's meaningful and important to me, and hopefully can be of assistance to Cooperative Extension here. And I'd also like to thank Mary Lee. Thank you so much for sharing that story. Tremendous success, and we'll look forward to seeing carrot coins and broccoli florets enter the stage as well. So thank you both for being on. We were sorry that Audrey Baker didn't connect. We're not sure what happened, but we were easily able to fill the time. So thank you both very much.
A couple of you had entered in questions that we'll follow up with you afterwards, just in the interest of time. And Amy, we have a question from the audience, somebody interested in your email address. If you'd be willing to share that in the chat, that would be fantastic. And before we go, I want to just kind of show all of you where you might find these resources following the webinar. So you should be seeing at this point, is everybody taking a look at a browser screen right now? You can chat that in and let me know. That would be fantastic. Yes, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to the staff site, staff.cce.cornell.edu, which those of you who work for Cooperative Extension or work at Cornell can have access to. It's behind, unfortunately, it's behind behind a whole bunch of different passwords to get into if you don't work at Cornell. But if you have a net ID, you can get in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm clicking on the units button and going down to the bottom, Organizational Development and Accountability. That's the unit that I work in. And there's a button under Tools of the Trade called Campus Program Connections. And that's where you'll find links to our program work teams. You'll find links to all the Campus County Connection webinars, and anything that's been previously presented as a Campus County Connection webinar. There is a page for it, and any of the resources and the recordings. So if farm to school initiatives will probably appear in ag and food systems, as well as food and nutrition as topical areas, and you can see some of the resources that we talked about today are there. You'll also see the recording will be on this page as well. So hopefully that will be useful to you. And, you know, follow up with me if you have any questions on how to gather this. The recording will be available to those outside of the extension system, but this resource page cannot be. So thank you all for participating. We have another Campus County Connection webinar coming up in January. So if the topic is of interest, you see there's a whole bunch of things listed here, but the 4-H Library Partnership Program will be offered in January, on January 15th. So thanks again, and everybody have a wonderful day and a good holiday season ahead.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jennifer.